Hey guys, this is me, George, and Chris. George is having a bit of dinner, so he'll turn his mic on when he's ready. The three of us haven't met in a while. So to start things off, for me, I would want to see Chris play a game against Crazy Stone, 6 Dawn. That's what we used to do, and we did that, wasn't a dozen times, but half a dozen times. And it kind of all got us on track of how he's thinking and everything. So I will open up a game. And Chris, you're going to be the black stones. That'll allow me as white to be able to take control and ask questions.
Sure. Let me hop in.
There we go. Lots of time so we can think. Okay, I guess we're ready.
Yeah. Seems good to me. Just give my good luck, have fun.
Okay. Crazy Stone says. There. George says that I never gave him access to the game. I will do that now. I have to go in here, options, access list.
And just to make sure, are we recording the game demo as well, or do we need to?
Oh, thank you.
Because I remember we had to do that before.
Yeah, one of my weaknesses. Thank you.
No worries. It's a lot to keep track of.
Okay, so now the viewers can see Chris. He's the Blackstones. We specifically chose that because if I'm playing the Whitestones, then I can take control anytime I want to ask questions. We can look at variations. Okay. Black plays here. Crazy Stone plays up here. 3-3, sure. One of many possibilities. It isn't till 6 Dawn that Crazy Stone starts taking time. Okay. I just realized that everyone is seeing the Crazy Stone board. No?
No, we're seeing the KGS one.
Our board. Good. Okay. So I'm taking control. Well, I'm going to give you control, and I'm going to ask probably one of these 4, and why did you choose one over the other?
So you could probably play any of the 4, to be honest. I didn't play 1 or 4 because white has such a big wall and can press us down. I don't want to be flat on the bottom next to white's influence. So we play 2 or 3 for dynamic contrast. The choice between 2 and 3 is just simply I'm expecting white to approach the bottom right at some point. He'll either start at the right side and then move down there, or he'll approach the bottom right. And I don't want to the stone at 2 to be farther away and closer to the wall in the event he tries to counterattack it.
I
So I'm
see.
keeping it closer to the corner to prevent any nefarious ideas.
Okay, so if you go all the way,
Mhm.
and to put it bluntly,
Mhm.
it could be a little bit funny.
Right.
Okay.
And next to such a really thick wall, like big wall anyway. It's not super thick. Could be attacked later,
Right.
turned into a stick. But I like to be a little conservative because it makes white have to think now about how white wants to approach the bottom right corner. You know, if white comes too close, then we can do some Kobayashi ideas where we can pinch it tight and
Right.
get a good fight here.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, these moves used to be very common. I remember when I first started learning Go, these types of things. When your opponent would make this big wall, you would, instead of making the corner enclosure, you would play a move to erase the wall's potential and expand the corner.
And am I correct that we wouldn't call this a mistake?
Correct.
Okay.
I think in like modern Go, like AI Go, this move would be a higher value priority in the opening. Corner enclosures are almost always preferred to side extending moves. But I think in practice, at least for humans, the strategy aspect of the game is so important. You know, being able to be flexible enough to play a move that AI might think is suboptimal, but having a good plan behind it is still a good thing, in my opinion.
Well, certainly right away, my easy on you getting this
Certainly,
really small wall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll see how he. Hopefully, he doesn't play again here.
Yeah. I would say that this is sort of an unintended side effect of my decision to play L4. You can't really over-concentrate the white wall from L4 unless white lets you. In this case, white let me. So it's a bit interesting. This one. This one's an old style move. How do I want to punish this? Um,
I'm actually thinking here for a minute.
By all means.
I'm trying to
Welcome back, Coach.
get a handle on. Can you show us some variations on what you might expect? Why you might not like this as well?
The pincer versus the move I played.
Right.
Okay.
If you had pincered, what do you think is going to happen?
One of the things I'm trying to keep my eye on is this. So whether he's going to push and cut immediately or whether he can aim at it, this one is going to start a local fight. And if I'm not super careful, he can gain some leverage against the A-stone for this fight in the future, I'm thinking. This type of pincer in general is not really severe because at any time white can play 1 or 2 and live. But I'm not worried about white living more so than I'm worried about the A-stone becoming leverage in this fight.
Okay.
So in the game, I play this one so that if the fight comes, I never have to worry about the corner being used. The corner is
Very
already
nice.
strong and alive as it stands.
Gosh, you're so smart. Okay. So go back to this, go back to, oh, none of that. Come on. We're here.
Yeah, and then I think he played the 2-space extension. Yeah, now we're back on the game branch.
Crazy Stone is using a lot of my computer. There we go. Resume.
Okay. This one. Mm.
When I imagine kicking that stone of white, I like my corner and white still too far away.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you do that?
I mean, you could. There's not one particular reason why I don't do it. I'm just not worried about white coming to the corner right now. So I'm emphasizing speed more so. Also, there's a small benefit to not making this exchange in my mind. And that's that later, again, if this 1, 2, 3 fight comes and we start something crazy on the bottom, I can come in at 4 instead of 5 and put pressure on the right side. So it still makes it harder for white to cut.
Okay, so you could do it, you could not do it, but if you don't do it, you have more options. Okay.
Yeah. Like always, I'm keeping my eye on this 1, 2, 3 cut. It's sort of indirectly defended at the moment, and that it's not really clear it's going to be good for white if white starts it. It's a consideration for black to cut first at h3 to make sure that white can't cut and fight, but this one. Excuse me.
There's a lot of things about that black move I don't get. So let's talk about it. First, area 1 is not something I'm about to write home about. Not too interesting. Next, if I want to attack the A stone, B needs another move on the bottom. While here, it's still a severe attack, and I don't need an extra move on the bottom. And since I don't care about the territory, I don't care about the 2-point loss. So what does all this mean?
If I'm going to be honest with you, I was playing it because it's a pattern that I'm particularly comfortable with. I wouldn't say there's any particular meaning behind it versus L17. I'm just not afraid of white trying to fight here. In most cases, I have control, right? I'm going to leverage these 2 stones to invade at A or B anyway. So at some point, the plan is to come over here, but I want to see what white's going to do. So B's a little bit risky. It leaves area 1 open, not that white's going to play there, but white can. And the fight on the top side is also going to tie into this fight on the right and potentially this fight on the bottom. So I'm just making the game very fun.
Okay. You played a game, I believe it was against Chris, one of the 6-stone games you played against George.
Yeah.
Where early on you played the 2 and you basically just left them for Raji. You couldn't care less if they were taken or not.
Yep.
So when you say in this position, you're thinking of A or B or C or something. So now when I'm seeing this, just to put it rather bluntly, why does that not work? Not that one. There it is. We're seeing that basically white has that top area and you have the left and the right. I didn't do that well. But does the picture get across what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of? Yeah. Okay. So when you see those 2 stones, you're not saying, oh, I have a group there I'm really going to take care of. No, these are going to give me flexibility on the left and the right.
Yeah, actually, I forget which pro I learned this from, but yeah, I was basically told, I think it might have been the Taiwanese pro actually. I was basically told that a lot of the time, these 2 stones never actually end up being realized as a group. In this shape, it's almost always more efficient to give up F17 than to save it, even right from the beginning. But the reason that you jump out first is that it commits white to a decision. And once white is separated, it costs white even more moves to connect the 2 sides, which makes it not worth it for white to surround them. So just the 1 exchange is kind of like good enough. And then you play the important side, which is removing the extension on the top in the local shape anyway. That's why in a lot of this shape, if I can have control for a second, that's why a lot of the time in this shape, what you see come next is going to be like a kick from white in the corner.
You have control now.
Yeah, so you'll usually see white. Yeah, it's good. I'm not going to click the stone, but I'll just mark it as C on the board. That's why oftentimes in a lot of pro games in positions like this, you'll see them switch back and block C instead of trying to save the A stone.
And if that were to happen here, play that out, what would Black's response be?
I would just extend up to F18.
Okay.
To keep leverage against the corner.
Okay, good.
If the robot does happen to play it, we'll get to see it. But if it doesn't play it, then we can look at it and review.
Okay, well, you just changed everything.
Nope, still the same idea. Still the same idea. It looks like I changed it because I added another stone. But the purpose of F15 and F13 is the same. I'm only playing them to make it expensive for white to connect the 2 groups. After that, anything can happen to them. I don't care. So this is already good enough to give me leverage on the corner. I don't need to respond here anymore. So now I think I want to do, how do I want to do this? There's a lot of different ways I can go now. The right side becomes more and more interesting to throw a stone into, the more white commits to running out this top group. Then there's still the issue with this bottom side. Still the issue with this bottom side. So I'm going to protect the bottom and Sente first. I'm terraforming the landscape a little bit here. This is a small difference, by the way. Oh, it ignored. That's impressive. I did not expect that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's big enough. The difference is very subtle between black cutting at h3 and leaving the cut until after white cuts. But I was trying to commit white to playing the g3 Atari rather than the h2 Atari.
Right.
That's mostly
And
I'm
I
saying that for
assumed
the
that
viewers.
Peter was going to do that.
Yeah. Now this one wants to play Furikawari. It wants to trade with me. Unfortunately, I think the trade is worse for white than it is for black. These 4 stones don't really mean much, at least as far as I'm concerned. Bump is a classic shape. Oh, whoops. Mouse miss, mouse miss. Thank you.
Okay, let's pause. Well, I have to wait for his move so I can move my mouse. But I am.
You can click his move and then we can talk.
Officially lost here.
Hi, welcome, George.
Okay.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Lance.
George.
Happy to see you again, Chris. It's been
nice.
I'm happy that we're all back together again.
For sure, for sure.
So, Chris, things have gotten out of hand. I'm lost as to your intent on K15. I don't see a lot of value in K15, other than you're going to play on the right. That one I see.
Yeah, so that's the main one. But also there's this sort of like ABC idea where they can cut that I can cut through and then start a fight outside in the center. So that's locally.
Play that out for me.
Locally a plan. Do we have Crazy Stone's next move so we don't ruin the game tree?
Yeah. G16.
G16. Okay, yeah, so it's preventing that. Okay, so if we imagine pass, there's this option for black, which can happen in the future. I wouldn't necessarily do it now because this fight's kind of tricky to handle now. But if white doesn't answer, there's the cut this way. And then there's also the one where black can connect this way and cut like this as well. Or connect underneath in the case that the cut doesn't work. So white's capture of the 2 stones becomes very small. And then black can still invade around A. So the plan has remained the same. I don't have any vested interest in saving any of these stones directly, only in the leverage that they can give me in areas that I actually might care about. I gain a lot of territory with A, and I can still invade the B side. So as far as I'm concerned, the 4 stones are still working. They don't need any more help. So I'm just playing in the bigger area. The top side at K15 is a bigger area. If white gets to play around, let's mark out this box with squares. If white gets to start playing in this box, it defends white's right side sort of indirectly by creating presence in the center for the groups to connect out to.
Yeah.
Makes it harder for me to invade. But when I have the stone at K15 and I control this box, for white to have to defend the C area in Gote would be painful. So I'm almost guaranteed that I'm going to get this follow-up. And now that I've traded for this, white lost a lot of leverage in the right side fight.
Yeah, on the bottom, that's awfully big and awfully practical. I mean, so that part's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to.
Yeah. So it's very much like global strategy more so than like any individual local tactic.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep my eye on what I think the next important area is, and I'm playing to that direction.
Okay, let me try to restate that in ways that I can grasp.
Mhm.
Our B area, we've done something great. It's big, it's practical. White could easily become a target there later, his stick.
Mhm.
Okay, and tons of points. Okay. Then our A stone, that's coming in at C, really interesting. White would have two weak groups there.
Mhm.
And also all the connecting, we can start doing cuts once we get D in there.
Mhm.
Okay, so A does a D thing and a C thing. Cool.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't think I could play that move,
Mhm.
but I would like to.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I click resume.
And then this is phase 2 of our sacrifice operation.
Mhm.
Because on this board, white really doesn't have a lot of territory. So if the left side gets broken, then white has to go to extreme methods to balance the territory. Mm. Now here, I'll just throw out a little bit of advice for any Q players that might see it later. Be careful about the moves that you play in your opponent's area like this. You want to play forcing moves that create more forcing moves, not forcing moves that remove more forcing moves. So things like keeps you don't want to play, direct cuts you do want to play, stuff like that. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see when Q players try to make some magic happen is that they remove all the magic. They play
I
forcing
see.
moves that fix other forcing moves and or that remove other forcing moves by fixing the opponent.
Right.
Here,
Don't
what I've
fix it.
achieved, right? What I've achieved is now if black blocks, there's two cuts on the edge. There's a cut at E16, and I have a group with some liberties that I can work with even if it dies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So am I worried about living directly with the stick? Not really. Can I live directly with the stick? Possibly. If I cut at E16, things have changed now. White's given me the option to start a fight in the center. And given my shape on the bottom, that actually looks like a good fight for black. So stone value is always changing. I now actually have a reason to save this group. And that would be the moment where I would choose if I want to do that or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to probe one more time and see what white wants to do here. Basically asking if he wants to capture this cutting stone or if he wants to connect at B16 to give more reinforcement to his corner.
Would playing it E16 instead of that move be too early? Because we're leaving
it's a good question. I could play E16, like cut, force him to connect, and then I could try something here. But I only have 3 liberties with the group if I actually make that cut. So, and the E16 cut, there's a thing about cuts like this. If I can have control for a second, this is actually kind of important that we talk about this.
There you go.
Let me just create a vacuum scenario here. I'm going to remove some stones on the bottom side. And we're going to pretend that the board doesn't exist beyond this border for a moment. So in this bottom left shape, it's a very common idea for black to come in and throw a move at A. And very often white answers with something like this where white doesn't directly connect the stone. And in situations where this happens, do you care to guess what the next move that black typically plays is, George?
I don't know, G5, some kind of jump?
Right, some kind of jump. Why aren't you wanting to cut?
Because we're behind enemy lines and losing a liberty.
That's true. We're going to change the perspective a little bit. If you cut and white lives easily with both sides, what did your cut achieve?
Nothing.
Nothing. It becomes dame. So very often in shapes like this, these kind of cutting stones can end up becoming all or nothing if they don't actually achieve something, like killing a group or squeezing a group significantly. So the same goes for this position where we do have an option to make this cut. We can play it. But at some point, we have to connect back. And if we can't do anything meaningful against either side yet, then we don't really want to spend the dame to actually make this exchange. We would prefer trying to entice white, for example, let's say we jumped. We would prefer to entice white to fix that himself.
Yeah.
So in a lot of these cases, you have to really evaluate whether or not the cut is going to be effective enough to merit spending a move on. I wanted to see white's intention with this because even if I don't cut, this move is going to give me other valuable resources in the local area that let me use the liberties of this without actually having to spend a move on a point that's potentially dame, this D point.
Thank you.
Hopefully that was...
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, that was explained well enough. It's always hard to sort of do these things. So we're gonna go to the more interesting place now. Yeah, the left side for white is what I would consider like white is swimming in dirty waters. The Aji over there on the left is very, very unclean. That exchange is painful. When I see exchanges
For
like
white,
this, I
'cause it
always feel
hurts.
like, right, yeah. Whenever I see exchanges like this, I always feel like my opponents are making concessions. I love it when they admit they've made a mistake. Now we have an interesting sort of long-term plan brewing here, George. Do you see it? It's in relation to what we talked about a minute ago.
Splitting the two groups, I guess, right?
Right. If this group in the upper right corner has to run, and black is able to split along the K line naturally, then when black decides to play F11 or some move like that in the future, the pressure on the cutting point at E16 becomes almost unbearable for white. So white might have to go back and spend a move for that. If white has to lose a move of tempo in that situation, that's going to be devastating for his other group. So now black has a plan, like a clear-cut plan for this middle game. Although in this case, we're also keeping in mind that at some point we can probably profit by this group on the bottom right also. And now white is committed to saving both of them. Oh dear.
It's looking very good.
So,
and it's how your group in the top left is very light, and both of white, all of white's groups are very heavy.
okay, in the upper left,
Yep.
black got an A stone, which on the surface is not very impressive. White got Gosh, attack B, killing C so easy. White's got, territory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing black achieved was potential.
Mm-hmm.
That is really hard for amateurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I consider it like white got the illusion of capturing B.
Yeah.
It's not real yet. Until white spends another move to finalize it, it's not real. And as long as white cannot afford to do that, then B is a very real threat to white.
This is really hard. We've seen you do this many times in the reviews you've shown us, in the games you've shown us. It's not easy thing to understand. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I've rarely done this.
Mm.
I'm a real straightforward kind of guy. Okay. So we got to hear. He came up, you turn. So resume play and turn. Yeah. I mean, now, gosh, white has 2 weak groups and black has odd.
Yeah.
Looking good for black now, but
and this kind of position, the value, it's like it's like K15 just gets more and more polished with every stone we add to the board. It's getting shinier and shinier, smoother and smoother, It's like one of those kinds of moves where like it just looks better the longer it sits on the board. Okay, calculation time. White is resisting. So I'm going into the think tank really quick because I have to make sure I don't die.
Right.
The straightforward method to escape is to Atari N9 and then extend to N12 and then come back and fix. But both of those exchanges are helping exchanges to white, so I like to avoid them if I can. If I do that, that seals me in. Can I punish effectively? Doot, 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 doot. That one gets tricky. I don't think I die, but it's not ideal. Is there a different way to leverage? What if I do it like this? Doot, doot, doot. Because then he can't make the net shape. He still gets cut into oblivion. So at that point, he would have to fix that, connect, attach. Okay, I think that works. I think we have just enough tempo to make this one work.
That one I didn't expect.
Yeah, so we can go back and sort of talk about what's going through my mind here. This is a reading exercise to me because one of the things, like I said, this would be the standard sort of way for black to get out. But the problem is A, B, C, D exchange are both good exchanges for white. They're pushing white from behind and helping white get ahead of black in an area where black doesn't particularly want to do that. And it's committing very hard to fighting this bottom area with the A group. So I was looking for a way that I could maintain the priority of keeping the center split without possibly dying. And so what I came up with was that if white extends down, I'm planning to go here. And this one I think is better direction because now A is off the table. So this way doesn't help white. If white connects, then I can make the exchanges locally and then still have this to live inside and then still have this to cut.
Okay. Sure, it's hard to put that in layman's terms, where we can all understand.
I can sum it up into one word.
Go ahead.
Reading. But it all stems from the idea that I just don't want to play the normal way because the normal way here helps white. So
if I was listening to this, I would beg someone to say, could you repeat that in English, please? So This so comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, yeah, but white is now ahead. You've encouraged white to fix his weakness and get ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
Then white's better on that side too. All in Sente. Yeah, you still have a fight on the right, but you don't necessarily going to win it.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. Next, what about something very simple?
Yeah, possible. But it's kind of the same thing, right? Because we're moving towards the right side direction, and we're giving white the first move again to fix the middle part in Sente.
Where does white play where white gets ahead?
White can play the Atari above. Push black out and then come along.
Yeah, but now black's the one ahead.
Yeah, keep coming out.
Black's
what I'm talking about is my goal is to eventually cut down the K line, but I can't achieve that vision if I'm having white push me along the 12 line. So
did you say you're trying to play over here?
Eventually, I would like to get a move around there.
Okay. So in regards to our fight on the right, all these moves that we're looking at, black's getting ahead, which was kind of the goal.
Yeah, but if white keeps pushing, then it's a bit easy for white to fix the upper left area. Like my plan was eventually to split the two groups.
Yeah. I understand.
And then get the added benefit of having to have white go back to fix.
I'm just looking at the right.
Yeah.
But you're looking at, no, it's not just the right. It's that the whole point is the center.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I wasn't saying. Okay.
Yeah. So rather than encourage white to play the Atari, which gives white all the pushing exchanges to come out, I'm not worried about the bottom right direction at all. I think the group inside can live. So I just want to deal with the direction that I think is important. Because for me, the future is going to be the upper left area and continuing there.
That's great. Yeah. That's just very deep is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, your move takes a lot of reading. Yeah.
Yep. Is this where Crazy Stone went?
Yes.
Okay. Shall we resume play?
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, and fighting, one of the principal important things to keep track of is your direction of movement. I played this move so that he couldn't make this move. Now he's saying he could make it anyway. Not yet. I still want to attach. Because he can't wedge inside easy. I can cut through the whole thing. So I'm going to take the points in the eye space here first. But in general, in fighting, movement direction is one of the most important things. And like tempo to who can move to the important or the big area first is a big deal in fights. Right now, even if white starts running with M13, I can still split the K13 line in Sente. So
yeah.
Like I'm maintaining the core of my idea. It's really funny how I'm able to predict these things. What's the most severe thing? Because white didn't connect. So now I actually have the option to change my mind. This is one of the hardest things to do in Go. Is to change one's mind. Logically, black should continue with black's plan. But white has just proposed a new trade to black. So we should at least consider that. And that trade is black can pinch at Q14 and then cut off the tail in the corner. So it becomes a counting exercise about whether or not I think that's going to be big enough. I'm going to say no deal. This is
So
for the
we
sake of
finally get
logical
back
continuity.
to that Aji.
Yeah, now we have a clear target for it, so it makes sense to start using it. Oh, connection. How interesting. Dude. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't put much thought behind this Atari. I probably didn't need to play it. Now I think because he ignored J14, he's still a move behind. So I don't see any reason why I can't take this now. For any Q players watching at home, I'm not worried about white capturing the stone.
Right.
That one's a very cute, thick move. But it must be punished. This is just a danger level. So, it was starting to cut out. You said something, Shy?
Well, you set up the Aji early on in the upper left, and finally we got back to it, and you're doing your stuff. Yeah.
Yep. And again, just because I want to touch on it, people watching later might be confused why I'm not running out the cutting stones at M11. Right? We should always save our cutting stones; they're important. This one is just a danger levels concept, simply meaning you can answer a threat with a threat of equal or greater value of your own, and it will usually be okay. So in this board, the threats that I can get by saving the middle and cutting at E16, I've deemed to be bigger than the value of white capturing the center. So I chose to play that one first. That one I'm clearly going to fix. Because this gives me the chance to push at 09 and cut later, so hold some value. Plus, we need the liberties for the R11 group in this fight in the corner. Six. So my magic number is 6. White's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 also. It goes like that. White decided to just come back and live now. This one should come as no surprise to anybody. We've only been talking about this since it was left on the board 30 moves ago. Oh, resisting again.
This is very true.
One thing I will give Crazy Stone credit for is it doesn't play the most straightforward lines. It always tries to find a cut or resistance somewhere, which is good, actually, because in real life Go, against most players, they're going to do the same thing. They're rarely ever going to just submit and play the line that you think of as your first impression. They're always going to look for some way to throw a wrench in the plans. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but, you know, they're going to try at least.
Oh.
Connection. Okay. Was one of the expected moves. We'll just fix. Yeah. There's a local Tesuji trap in the left-hand side, which is why I played E13 instead of connecting. I don't think it's going to actually happen, but in the event that it does, it's cool. I like to be able to play it when I can. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, I was responding to a message. So this is actually part of that trap I was talking about. When white extends here and forces black to jump out, later black has an attachment at C12 that gets turned on when black has this jump.
So white's showing his bad colors here.
White is doing everything white. Yeah, white is doing everything it can to try not to lose this game. So it's going to aim for things like the L17 cut, stuff like that, to try to flail to make a life. And if it can't achieve the life, then obviously the game is completely over. It's not going to be able to win from now.
So game's over, but we'll let it play out.
Yeah, because in a real game, you know, Q players that watch this, they're going to run into similar situations. So it's good for them to see what these kinds of moves look like and how to punish them. Basically, for black, it's just a matter of making sure that black doesn't lose the liberties that he needs on the top to maintain connection, and also make sure that white does not get to surround 4 stones in the center and kill them. Sounds like a lot, but there's so much space. It's not really possible for white to achieve much. There's really only 2 areas of interest for black to continue after this. That's going to be things like the push and cut at 009 and the Tesuji I mentioned on the left. After those get taken, the end game's basically in full swing, and then whatever the score is until the end, assuming perfect play. I'm just double checking to make sure that there's not going to be any nefarious nonsense if I block here with white's R16 Atari. I don't think there will be, so I'll block it.
Yeah.
Yep. Now this group is finished. Objectively, if white were to carry on, white would probably fix the white would have to fix the 2 areas I mentioned earlier and try to move to the end game, but it's not going to be meaningful.
Over, but we're just going to finalize the last few moves here.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's doing everything it can to try to win something, so. Still 6. He can't do that. If he does that, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So he does that one. Dude, 1, 2. Okay, fine. We'll just take it now. That'll remove any funny business at all in the corner that white might try.
Right.
Black doesn't need to play this move, but to be honest, black could probably pass 3 times in a row in most cases and still be winning. So,
Okay, so we can stop there because white's off doing something else, which obviously doesn't affect
yeah,
the win.
yeah,
Okay,
pretty
good.
much.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I do
I
have a
guess
question.
maybe- Yep, let's go.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
So I'm picturing a 1Q, 3 Dawn in that range, and they could
Mhm.
all play these moves. Okay, all makes sense.
Mhm.
Sure. They could even have good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One here all makes sense. Yep. Okay. Here things start getting off track. None of them are going to play this move without thinking, I will then develop my group and make it safe. I don't know what my question is. Can you help me phrase it? This is crazy talk.
Yeah, so it's a difference in perspective. So if we back up 2 moves, let's go even one more. At a higher level, professional players, at least the ones I've talked to, tell me that all this move is a probe. This is the most basic example of a probe you can have. You're asking white to make a decision. What area do you think is important? That's all you're asking. And white's decision, white's answer to this probe is going to give you insight into how your opponent thinks about this game, what they consider to be important, and you can compare that against yourself.
Okay, that I understand.
Right. So
good information, we can walk away. Good information, we can walk away or play now, whatever.
Right.
Okay, that I understand.
Yeah. So white pincered in the game, right? So white made an answer, and now black has to think about what does the answer mean for black's plan and what black intends to do next. So when white is pincering, what is that saying about the position from white's perspective? If you were black and you were asking that to yourself, what would you think about when you see white go here?
The thought would never cross my mind.
I wouldn't also pincer here as white. I wouldn't think about it. But if I saw my opponent pincer, I would think to myself, how did they arrive at that conclusion? What's their plan? You know, it seems to me like white is afraid of black building a big upper side territory given the weakness on the right side. That's what I would extrapolate from this. So instead of letting black...
I would say top is small.
I would also, right? And so this is where you and your opponent see the board differently. Right? So with black thinks that the board is small and black sees white playing on the small side, black would make a decision based on that assumption. Well, the corner's bigger, black can just jump in the corner. That's one way you could go from here, and that would be perfectly fine. The way that I chose to view the position, C17, let it be known, is what I would play in a tournament. That would be my default move here for that reason. Okay. But these games to me get very boring very quickly. So I wanted to try to make something bigger, like a little bit more grand idea. And so what I started thinking about is how am I going to web the other interesting parts of the board, the bottom, the right, the top, because now white has played a very interesting move. I don't think the top side is particularly interesting as a place, but the move white played was interesting. How can I sort of bridge the three together into one sort of game plan? And then if that's the case, we have to jump. We have to keep white separated and make white.
I see.
And then the rest is just specific knowledge of the one space low pincer shape in general, in the sense of knowing that when you do jump and separate, the two stones are not always converted into a group. They can be used flexibly, and sort of playing from that perspective and trying to maintain direction. It's harder to play this way. I wouldn't recommend it to a 1-dan or a 3-dan. I would only recommend it if they're trying to go 4-dan and beyond.
Okay, so let me ask a little bit here. At the moment, I'm not real concerned about this cut.
Right.
Okay, but I think as the game progresses, I will be.
Yes.
So I would be very interested. I want to make sure I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Assuming this, I'll go ahead and get my Sente in. And from here, he can't cut me.
Right.
Now,
And I thought about it.
So that timing's not horrible.
No, I think it's probably actually ideal to do this timing now.
Okay.
I leave it mostly because I want these games to be interesting.
Sure.
So if the bot does cut, it gives us a practical problem that people will see in their games that we can solve.
Okay.
I solved it in the game when I did, because if I leave it longer than that, there's a real chance that the cut actually happens and becomes not straightforward for me.
Okay.
And although that would be fun to do in a video, it also means I might lose, and I'm trying not to ruin my reputation by losing to the robot.
Okay. So if we do it now, I've marked, hey, we have a wall. It's not cut. It's an actual wall.
Yep.
At that point, I see the two black stones as, sorry, the two white stones as a real target.
Yep.
Well, it's just too early.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I want this, what would I have before this? Well, I'd have that. That's what I'd have before this. And lo and behold, that's what you played. He played here. Now I've changed it. We got the wall first.
Yeah.
Now I am really liking this idea. It's just we need to finish the opening first. Okay. Hey, just a minute, guys. If I come out, all of white's weaknesses are shown. Okay. That I can follow.
Right. This touches on a concept you used to talk about a lot when I was a kid. The difference between the game variation and this variation is that in this variation, the invisible stones are actualized.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, on the bottom, these exchanges are invisible until black plays them. But both sides have to read the board as though they already exist.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That I can understand.
Yeah.
For viewers, when Chris and I first started trying to work together, he sees goes, in my opinion, in an extremely complicated way. We're opposites in that way. And he would explain things, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. He'd try again. I don't understand a word you're saying. It was so frustrating for me, I think for him too. And it was about, I don't know, two years went by. He says, you know, I think I've simplified my thought process. Let's try again. And we're starting to be able to communicate, which is pretty cool. And I still have to pause just a second. Let me catch up. So I like that we're working together better. Okay, so I think I'm understanding things.
Yep.
Good. Well, very nice. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yep.
George,
thanks for having dinner with us.
No problem. Chris, before we leave, could I ask you one question about the difference between F17 and coming into the corner, C17?
George, you have control, so you can show us. I can't follow coordinates personally.
Yeah. I think he's saying the approach versus the direct 3-3 invasion. Yeah, so this one's fairly easy to explain, although George, you're muted.
You have control,
Yeah.
Chris.
Okay, George, you're muted, so make sure that you're unmuted for this segment. You can play this. This is fine. Nothing wrong with it. One of the expected results that happens in a shape like this is that we get something like this. And if we keep in mind that there's a potential cut looming and part of Black's plan is to either remove it directly or leverage B, does this make that future easier or harder for
Yeah, harder, yeah.
So when you're making these decisions in the opening, it doesn't matter. Even probably now, it doesn't matter. But we have real middle game questions on the board right now.
Yeah.
So when you have this sort of blend of the opening and middle game, the strong players tend to have plans and ideas already about what they're trying to realize in the middle game. And they're going to be attuned to these areas of interest and how fixing other parts of the board is going to impact that. So I don't want to give white any unnecessary help on the top. In relation to this, I want to make the top more difficult. And so when I approach and expand from my influence, as you saw in the game, when white comes in, it makes the top more difficult. White doesn't have a lot of space. This area is controlled by black. You know, it's like 3-to-1 difference controlled by black. And when white jumps, it's even more than that, still controlled by black. So that keeps the pressure on the 2 and the 3 point rather than offering white a way to alleviate that pressure in Sente, which would be going for a sequence like this. The idea is more so important than the sequence, obviously, but
yeah, that's good.
George,
And
does
I
that
guess
answer your
also it's a more difficult question for white to answer, right? Because the pinching that stone
Right.
doesn't really seem to do anything, and also the K-Mod on the other side doesn't seem to really be doing much. But if you jump into the corner, then it's very easy for white to know which side to block.
right. This move gives white, it's a very simple move. It's just an approach, but it gives white the opportunity to make the most mistakes. You know?
Cool. Thank you.
So,
Okay. Now I have one last question.
sure, ask away.
As black,
Uh-huh.
we're interested in the A
Mhm.
situation, and we've dealt with B, that we know there's some invisible stones there and blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yeah.
So entering somewhere around A and hurting the C stone.
Mhm.
Well, doesn't this do that best of all?
Well, it helps the C stone settle. So to say that it's hurting the H17 stone, I mean, white's going to have to answer it, but white's going to be alive. If we make white alive there first and then we jump in, how many problems does white have to deal with? One, because white only has to live on the right.
Black
after
and
that.
white both have different problems.
Right. But if the top group has some problems and the right group has some problems, when black attacks the right side, white has to deal with both problems. So white becomes busy. So
Okay,
this,
let's just look a little tiny bit here, just for fun.
yeah.
I'm gonna, for the sake of,
Yeah, black, we'll just say white's alive. Yeah.
okay, we'll make white alive. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm suggesting that this is like, no, white's not going to do that anymore.
Right.
And that this becomes better than ever.
It's still possible, yeah. I don't know if I would say it's better than ever, but it's playable for sure. It becomes very, very likely that it's going to happen.
Are we thinking that C is a reasonable move, or just, is there something wrong with C?
It's not that anything is wrong with it. C is not strategically deep, and it's also not very flexible. So when you play a move like C, you're creating the thickness and you're committing to this attack at B. If that attack does not pan out to a certain degree, then C is not efficient.
Okay. This keeps the options open. Good, good. That's the answer I was looking for. Good. Okay, let's call it quits there. Thank you both so much. That was very informative.
Fantastic. Great.
All right.
And I believe we'll see you both next
Sunday.
week.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
I hope you feel better, Lance.
As soon as I find out how to end us.
Just the big red button.
Thanks, Chris. That's great. I'm happy you're back.
Yeah, a little bit more time on Sundays now without open enrollment and having to take some personal time for this move. It gives me a lot of time to do more Go related recording stuff. I got my course for Go Magic sort of finished, and just waiting on them to finalize the editing for the attacking segment, and then after that, we can move on to the next course. They already want me to think about what I want to be doing.
Is it a paid course?
Yeah, they pay me $200 per 10-minute video.
Oh wow! Okay, great,
Yeah.
amazing. But it's as in, I mean, it's a free YouTube video. It's not a premium course or anything.
It is a premium course. This one is a premium course that they're paying me for.
Okay.
The first one I did was for their YouTube video. It was kind of like a, hey, introduction to me as a teacher. They want other mid-dons and stronger players to start doing middle game content for like 15 to 5Q range.
Cool.
And so they chose me to do attack and like basic intro to attack and defense.
Great.
So I did. And then now we're discussing next topics, which could be things like invasions 101 or like the basics of standard invasions, that sort of thing. Maybe a course on Sabaki or Shinogi, which are both concepts that I tend to excel at personally. You know, so maybe, you know, we'll see something like that manifest, but it's sort of kicking back up on the Go content train because I need to save up money quickly. There's a certain goal I'm trying to reach by summer. And then from summer to winter, there's a second goal I'm trying to put in motion. Eventually, you know, pay off all the business debts and stuff that we accrued last year by June. And then once that's done, save up money to buy land and put a house on it so that I don't have to pay rent for the rest of my life. Because I don't know what rent looks like in the UK, but over here, that shit's expensive.
Yeah, well, I'm in Amsterdam, and the prices have gone through the roof since I've been here. And actually, now I'm kind of technically homeless. You probably hear the reverberation in this room, and that's because it's my old room. I've moved all my things into storage, and so it's just an empty room. So I'm actually I'm not paying rent now, which is amazing. But the downside is that I'm having to move around a bit.
That's fair.
One suitcase, some friends, and
no, but you know, while you're floating around until you get yourself in somewhere, I mean, probably not too bad. You've got drumming. That's what you do for a career, right?
Yeah, and I'm touring. You know, I'm playing abroad quite a lot anyway, so it might work out for some months. Yeah. Let's see. I'm curious.
You'll figure it out, though. I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what it pays to be a drummer in Europe, but
not much. But I think I've made it. Yeah, it's working. So yeah.
Well, good luck, George.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. Hope to see you next Sunday.
Take care. Bye.